Algebra 2 mixed review number 9, you were asked to find the product of negative 2 plus 6i and 3 plus 4i. So we're going to be multiplying these. We're going to be using the FOIL method, or the double distribute. That's the fancy term. Start off by doing negative 2 times 3, which is a negative 6. Outer would be negative 2 times 4i, which is a negative 8i. Inner is going to be 3 times 6i, which is 18i, positive. And then you're going to have 6i times 4i, which is going to be a positive 24i squared. We can combine like terms. So since these both have the imaginary unit attached to them, negative 8i plus 18i can just turn into 10i. Bring down the negative 6 that was in front. Now this is a positive 10i because we took 18i and subtracted 8i essentially. And then we're going to bring down the positive 24i squared. I'm going to do this step by step. I'm not going to try to condense too many steps together so I could show my work very clearly. Now I'm going to bring down the negative 6 plus the 10i. Those are unlike terms, so they cannot be combined. And then in my next line, I'm going to put plus 24. But just like I did in a previous question, I know that I squared is equivalent to negative 1. It's one of our special powers of I. So I'm going to go ahead and replace I squared with negative 21. I'm sorry, with a negative 1, which is going to multiply right here to be a negative 24. Negative 6 plus 10i minus 24. We can combine like terms. We can combine these constants. Negative 6 minus 24 would be a negative 30 plus 10i. Unlike terms, these are going to just stay like this because they are not able to be combined since they're unlike terms. Number 10 was the next one. What is the conjugate of 1/2 plus 3/2 I? So if we want to know the conjugate, we're going to keep the 1/2. The plus in the middle is going to change to a minus, and we're going to keep the 3/2 I. So that's all you have to do there. That was pretty simple. It's just a vocabulary understanding of what conjugate means. Next one you had was 11. For all values of theta, which is an angle measurement, what is the equivalent expression for the secant of theta divided by the cosecant of theta? So we want to reduce this using our trig ratios. The secant, as a review, the secant of theta is the same as 1 divided by the cosine of theta. We're going to put that fraction bar in the middle. And the cosecant of theta is the reciprocal of the sine of theta, so it's 1 over the sine of theta. Now we have fractions to divide. Keep, change, flip. Keep the 1 over the cosine of theta. Change the division, or the fraction, into multiplication, the inverse operation, and flip the denominator. It's going to be the sine of theta over 1. And when we multiply now, multiplying fractions, multiply the numerators, and you get sine of theta. If you multiply the denominators, you get the cosine of theta. And the last thing is to realize one of the quotient identities, that the sine of theta over the cosine of theta does equal the tangent of theta. So that should be your final answer. Number 12. So you have a diagram here. It's a right triangle. So when we see diagrams involving right triangles, we have an idea that we're going to be looking at trig ratios and SOHCAHTOA. And let's recall that SOHCAHTOA refers to the sine of theta would be equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse. The CA part is the cosine of theta, and it's A over H, so it's adjacent side over hypotenuse. And then you have your tangent of theta, which is O over A, opposite over adjacent. they gave a tree here. My diagram's not going to look the same as nice diagram here. And then you have the distance of the base of the triangle here was given to be 25 feet. The tree height was not given. That's what we're finding. I'm using an X to represent that. That's my unknown. I want to find the height of the tree. I am told the hypotenuse. Actually, I'm not told the hypotenuse. I'm told that this angle measurement is 32 degrees, though. And the question reads, a tree casts a 25-foot shadow on a sunny day, as shown in the diagram. If the angle of elevation, right here is the angle of elevation from the tip of the shadow, right here is the shadow, that angle of elevation from the tip of the shadow to the top of the tree is 32 degrees. What is the height of the tree and round to the nearest tenth of a foot? So we want to find this measurement of the tree, so that's X. We know this measurement here is 25, and we know an angle. So theta here is 32 degrees. So we're going to figure out which of these ratios is going to help us the most. I'm looking at my angle here. Okay, I know that opposite it is X, and I want to know what X is. So I'm going to use the opposite, and the hypotenuse would be across from the right angle. Always across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. That's unknown. So we're not going to get involved with any ratios that involve hypotenuse. So that knocks out the first two ratios. We're going to use the tangent. The tangent of the angle, which is 32 degrees, has to be equal to the opposite side over the adjacent. Opposite that angle is X. Adjacent side is the one next to it, which is 25. We want to find what X is. We're going to make a ratio, a proportion, and cross multiply. X times 1 is X. And then 25 has to be multiplied by the tangent of 32 degrees. Make sure your calculator is in degree mode. Right now it's in radians, so I gotta go switch it back to degrees. And then go back to my main screen, and I would like to take the tangent of 32 degrees. Tangent of 32 degrees. And I have to multiply that by 25. I get 15.6217. I went around to the nearest tenth. The 6 is in the 10th spot. The number to the right is 2, which is going to keep it the same. So the nearest tenth is going to be 15.6. That's your height of the tree, and it's in feet. Choice B. I'm going to do one more video on questions 15, 16, and 20. Coming up next.